Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I am all on my own, which is weird. I'm not used to doing this on my own. But there was some demand to continue with Sharp Objects, despite the fact that Connor wanted to stop. There's only 4 episodes left, including this one, so yeah, sure. Let's do Sharp Objects solo, and maybe in future I can do some other things solo. I don't know, but I mean the main format of the channel is still discussion. It's still multiple people, but I think in the odd case maybe we will do something like this where I can be on my own, and it'll maybe change how it flows a little bit. I don't know, but hey, so yeah, we're going to talk about Sharp Objects season 2. Sorry, not season 2. See, I've already made a mistake. This is the bad thing about starting this sort of thing now. Anyway. Sharp Objects, episode 5, it's called Closer. And so full spoilers for the episode as always, as per usual on the channel. I think my first thing I want to say about this is I'm glad I watched this one. I do think this was actually a pretty good episode for the vast majority of it. I do have to bring a bit of negative criticism into the opening, not because the opening itself is bad, but because there was like a little stigma I had to get over to start enjoying the episode, because the last episode ended with that big cliffhanger where it was kind of delirious, and we did question like how much of what Camille saw at the end of last episode was real. Was seeing Amma on the road real? Was seeing Amma's body in the shed real? How much of any of it was real? It turns out absolutely none of it was real. None of it. She wakes up in the house, Amma's running around, it's a Colhoun day. More on that in a minute, but so none of that actually happened. So I have to call a little bit of bullshit, because I feel like last episode was definitely the weakest episode I think of the series, and I think the ending was the one thing that kind of perked it up. But it turns out in retrospect that the ending was kind of, I don't want to say a cheat, that made me feel a bit harsh, but just it's nothing. Like it never like amounted to anything. And I get you can argue it's Camille's concerns and worries now that she's heard that, you know, Amma used to be friends with the victims and things like that, but and it's her anxiety kind of culminating and piling on. But as a TV show, as a cliffhanger to the end of an episode, it's just kind of bullshit to go out on that clear threat that something's bad has happened to her in some capacity, if not actually in the shed with the bodies, but out there in the road at night in front of the car, whatever. But none of it happened, so I did have to go over that a little bit to get into it. Once it actually got going though, this episode might have a couple of the best scenes of the entire show. It's still true that the case itself, the murder case, isn't advancing a super amount, but I did feel that in this episode the tension in the town, you know, from the case, the tension that's been caused by the case was very much a big factor. So as much as there wasn't much advancement in terms of, like, you know, plot beats, if you will, the actual tension was felt in the scenes in the party and the barbecue, and because of that, I didn't feel like it was lacking in the same way that I did last week's was. Just, you know, it's just the way, because it felt like it was still important in this episode, I guess is what I'm saying. Whereas last week it felt like it was just kind of like killing time almost. That's what it felt like to me anyway. Whereas this episode, I felt like the tensions. There was a moment in the middle of the episode where as well the plays on, and we you know, Jackie's sitting there, Adora's sitting there, and everyone's kind of looking around at each other, and Camille's there, and Detective Willis is there, the chief's there, like everyone's around, and everyone's looking around. They're looking around at John Keane, they're looking at Nash, you know, everyone. Like, the entire town is at this barbecue thing, and they're all looking around, waiting for the tension to boil over. So no, I thought that worked quite well, but you know, the scene that really stuck out, the scene that grabbed me early on here. So they're dressing up for this day, and there's a really great scene actually early on with Amy Adams talking to her editor. Probably the most touching of a conversation they've had up until this point, where she actually asks him, you know, am I a bad person? She asked for reassurance, and he has to, like, you know, it's felt a little bit paternal here or there with them up until now, but this especially felt like no, he needs to step in and play dad here, and he needs to give her advice. And she's crying over the phone, and it kind of hit me a little bit. And she wants to try and help Amma with the lines. Amma's going to be in the play as this like, I guess it's Colhoun, I think that was her name specifically from the story. We find out what exactly that story was later, but she's running lines with Camille, and Camille's like, oh, I forgot how creepy this play was. And, you know, Adora just like, oh no, it is what it is, let it go. But And well, I just sort of let that pass at the time in the scene. When I actually found out what the play was and what the story this was that they were celebrating, I then really began to question Adora's comment of just, oh, it's just, it's fine. It's just, no. And actually, Amma brings up that she tried to, that Adora tried to have something changed, and Camille cracks a almost like a joke where she's like, "Oh, you're a feminist now," like she's surprised that she would in any way like speak against the traditions, regardless of how sexist it might be or how dark it might be. Because when we get to this play later on, it's the town is celebrating like a Union wife or a wife like of a Confederate, but the wife was a Yankee originally, and the Union soldiers came for her and they tied her to a tree and tortured her, raped her, and whatever else. But she never gave up. She never like gave them the information they were after. So she's seen as a hero, like a town hero in folklore. And then eventually she was saved. But she lost her baby. She was pregnant. So later on in the episode, there's literally this play on stage where Adora is looking up at her daughter playing a gang rape victim on stage. And it's ridiculous on stage. Like they're showing this by having some of the teenage male actors just kind of shake his butt back and forth. Essentially, this is what's happening, and she's looking up and just like I don't want to say adoring, and that feels like I'm cracking a pun, but it's just kind of like, man, that's maybe the sickest scene, because Adora has some pretty bad scenes in this episode in terms of like her being an awful human being. After this episode, I officially hate her as a person. As a character, sure, she's interesting. As a person, she is a vile individual. But her looking up and being proud as her teenage daughter is playing a gang rape victim, as if this is something to cherish. It sums up just how batshit insane this town is in a lot of ways, right? And the crowd are all cheering. This is what their day is to celebrate. And Camille points out, oh, my backyard's about to be, infested with Confederate flags, and the editor's like, yeah, use that, yeah, dig into that, like talk about this crap and everything they're into. So that's kind of, so anyway, the scene I was getting to is Camille's no, you're not, to Camille, sorry, Adora says to Camille, if you're coming to this barbecue thing, you're not wearing that, you're going to wear a dress. So it's like, I'm taking you out, we're going to go on a field trip to get you a dress, and it feels like Amma and Camille are almost bonding a little bit until Amma gets the email or whatever that links to Camille's story, which has finally went out. We heard it was going to be published. It took an extra episode than I thought it was going to, but it's finally been published, and she's upset that she's not heard about any of this before, and she's upset that the article implies. People we keep hearing that people in the town are reading into it specifically saying it's either Nash or John Keane. And all it really says, is, from what we hear, is that it's someone local. It's someone in the town. It's not a stranger. It's not an outsider. It's someone in the community. But of course, this community is obsessed with its image, obsessed with how it looks, and because of that, they're offended by this insinuation. Even though all Willis is trying to do is catch the real killer. That's what he's there to do. But they see her as printing this as an offence, and Amma gets kind of pissed that she wasn't told about this. Especially when Camille starts to kind of push about, you were friends with these girls, and she's like, yeah, like a while ago, but I don't like to think about them because I wasn't friends with them anymore when they get killed. But they go out to the store, and Adora picks like 3 dresses and says, hey, try on these, and the employees like taking her to the changing room. And as she's walking up to the changing room, she grabs another dress. Like Camille says, hey, I want to try this one. And it's one with long sleeves, because the one that Adora has picked are all just these like, sort of thin strap dresses, right? So here's the thing that I thought was impressive about all this, before we even get to the meat of this scene, is that even in the build-up, even when they were in the car, and like the 2 sisters were in the back seat, and it almost felt that they were kids again. Obviously, Amma's still technically a kid, but like she's an older kid, and Camille obviously is in her 30s, late 30s even. So, but they're sitting in the back seat, and I got flashbacks of being in the back of the car as a kid, being taken somewhere you don't want to go. But the real tension from it was like, wait, she's taking her for clothes shop, and this is like one of these things where this is the sort of thing she has to like be careful about and hide because of her scars, because of her self-inflicted wounds. This is the sort of thing where it has to be very personal. She's worried about what someone might see. And of course, that's just highlighted by the fact that she picks another dress that does have sleeves, that does have, more of a covering, basis, whatever you would call it. And she gets in the dressing room and she takes off her top and she's got scar, she see all the words and stuff, but she feels very vulnerable, and I connected to this in a very weird way actually. This, I mean, I don't have anything like this specifically, but just the idea that there's something that you don't want anyone else to know, and there's maybe a subject or there's a place you could go that might bring it out, that might bring the fact that you can't do something, or might bring the fact that you can't, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Like, I connect to that really well. I can't even think of an example, and even if I could, would I want to share the example? I don't know. But, it's like, I hope that doesn't, that can't come up. I can't be a part of that conversation, because then I can't hide the thing that I'm trying to hide, right? I think we've all probably been in that situation in some way. It's very easy to not be suspicious about something if if nothing ever comes up that leads to it. But this is like in the danger zone. This is in the area where her exact problem might come out. And then, of course, it turns into a proper horror scene where her actual shirt that she's got up in the door gets taken away. Adora is the one who takes it away. And then Amy Adams in there. This is some of the best acting of the episode, is Amy Adams begging for her clothes back over and over again. And Adora deliberately kind of ignoring her and just sort of saying, put on the dress. To the point where, in a moment of defiance, Camille just opens the door. She doesn't put on the dress, she just opens the door, she's in her underwear, and Emma's standing right there. I mean, because the bit that hit me the most when she was saying, Emma, go and wait in the car, and she says it like 3 or 4 times. She really keeps saying it, and she's determined to get her to go, and then she won't. And then she's like, well, if this is what you want, I'm going to do it. And she opens the door, and Emma sees it all. And it shocks Emma. Emma had no idea, seemingly, and later on she even tries to apologise for being kind of mad at her and kind of poking the bear with the article, because she brings up the article in front of Adora, which, again, pokes her into being kind of aggressive, argumentative, confrontational, and it also brings up Camille's father, who she mentions in passing to the store worker as if it's nothing. She gets her complexion and temper from her father, and Camille says, that's more than you've ever told me about my father. And then she tries to talk to her about it. She says that to her, and she's like, no, we're not talking about this, or whatever. She sort of fobs her off. And then she finally brings it up when Camille comes out of the dressing room and we see all her scars. She says, it's worse than I remember. And I think the dialogue here is very, very important. She says, it's worse than I remember. And Camille says, well, you weren't there at the end. It's like, and she's like, so it's over? It's like, yes. And Adora responds with one of the worst things, and she actually tops it later in the episode. Well, arguably. I don't know, this one might be worse actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But she says, it doesn't matter, you're ruined. All out of spite. And then she says, that was your father. He was all spite. That's what you took from him. So, the idea of her saying, well, it doesn't matter that you've gotten better, you're a lost cause, you're ruined. That is one of the most hurtful things that you can say to anyone, never mind your own mother saying it to you. And then Camille goes into the dressing room and screams into the dress. This entire scene was this was almost a horror movie, but for social interaction. This was a horror movie of social interaction. This 5-10 minute sequence of the dressing room, the build up to it, the dressing room, and then the confrontation at the end of it. And then she wants to leave. This might actually be when she's on the phone again. I think I was combining 2 phone call scenes actually with the editor, because then she's crying on the phone, and he kind of he even says at the end, do you want to come home? And she's like, no, I'll see this through. But he does the dad thing. He's like, no, you're a good person. You may be a bad reporter. He tries to crack some jokes, and it's kind of sweet. But Amma apologizes, and she's like, no, I didn't know about this, and she's like, did it hurt? And she actually, there was a funny line here where she says something like, she describes some of her friends that might be like this or something like that, and Camille says, oh, your friend sounds like an after school special, and then Amma says, what's that? And I thought, oh, that's funny, because I know what an after school special is. Admittedly though, I don't know if I ever actually had them when I was a kid. I think that was something that was maybe dying out. when I was a kid. So it kind of makes sense that a teenager now wouldn't wouldn't even know what one is. But it's just funny to me. I think what's funny to me about it is that I think there's a lot of things from before my time that I still know about, just because I watch a lot of movies and TV, specifically older movies and TV. So I get a lot of things from context. Like, I mean, I shouldn't really know what a Betamax is, but I know what a Betamax is. I'm well versed in the history of VHS versus Betamax, just because I'm interested in the topic, but B, just because I watch enough movies and TV where they bring it up that I understand what it is from context. So it always gets me when a teenager doesn't know something that I thought was like ridiculously common knowledge. But then there's some things I also don't know that other people would probably think is common as well. So whatever. I mean, who am I to judge? But it cracked me up. It cracked a smell at me. So the rest of the episode is pretty much, or for the most part, is the actual barbecue. And Amma gives her a dress, one of hers, that's got long sleeves, and there's so much, like, everywhere Camille goes in this episode, in this barbecue, she's like, you know, there's some guys that talk to her, try and flirt with her, and, you know, Willis comes up and sort of helps her out of the situation. There's the friends who, they're like quick little flashback shows where probably they were cheerleaders when she was a cheerleader, and they clearly look down upon her. It's, you know, it's got that fake friendly thing going for it. The guy who's playing the piano and arranged the play is seemingly the head football player that was in the, you know, in the childhood sex scene with Camille in the woods. He was one of the football players, and he tries to like talk to her and says he was thinking about her a lot. And but just the idea that he's the one who arranged this play that's about the town history, celebrating this woman who survived through gang rape, and how he's like, you know, he's just playing piano, he's being cheered for like arranging this, but he also committed this act. You know, I mean, again, as consensual as it may or may not have been, they're underage. And, you know, it kind of like, again, it goes back into the sickening kind of, like, what does this town value? The idea that he probably thought this was okay to an extent because the town celebrates shit like this. It really, like, calls into question the corruption of the town. They think they're this perfect little community, but they are promoting some dark shit with everything they have. I mean, obviously, on top of the fact that they're just, you know, flying Confederate flags around and, you know, celebrating the South and all the rest of it, which happily Willis points out cracks some jokes at the expense of that, which I did appreciate. I needed a window to, you know, someone to act as a window to like call out the Confederate celebration, if you will. So, you know, I need some character that I can bond with in that I can root for. So a couple of little notable things I wanted to mention here. Obviously, there's a lot of tension with Nash and John Keane and obviously John Keane's girlfriend's another one that comes up to Camille. She's constantly being like grabbed and talked to like from every direction. Another really great tense sort of section was when Adora takes Willis into the house. And then it feels like Adora's like playing the game here. It feels like she's making sure that Amma's somewhere and that Camille's elsewhere, and she's probably going to tell him about her scars and, you know, almost try and sabotage the relationship before it can begin. And it turns out she doesn't, but there's a lot of tension in the build up to that, like Camille getting to the house to try and intervene, to try and stop it or whatever. And afterwards she's trying to, like, you know, but there's these little sweet moments. There's that little jokey moment where he's like, oh, is there anything she should have told me? And she's like, oh, you could take advantage of me when you're drunk. And he just like casually hands his beer to her, and it makes her laugh. It's like it's a genuinely sweet little moment. They actually have some chemistry that's building here or there, which is nice to see. And this is such a otherwise dark and seedy world that this show kind of gives us. But so yeah, we get to the play, and obviously I want to point out that the kid who claimed that he saw the woman in white steals a bottle of beer or something at one point from one of the stalls. And then later on, at the end of the play, we see that Nash and John Keane, like Nash has attacked John Keane and he's on top of him. He's like, oh, you killed her, and he's fighting. So obviously everyone, you know, Willis and the chief go up and grab him and break it up. But as this is happening, you see the kid who stole the beer and said that he saw the woman in white. He's running away from that general direction, and he runs into Keane's girlfriend and then keeps running. Now, I don't know how important that is over, you know, in the grand scheme of things. Did the kid say something that maybe helped? I mean, it didn't seem like he needed to. It seemed like, you know, Nash was like raring to go. He was raring to go fight him anyway. But like, I'm wondering, like, you know, if there's something more specific with the kid involved there. We should also mention that Amma during this performance was on ecstasy and was completely high off her head. it's funny because Connor kept complaining about the overuse of sound, like in terms of like just noise, in terms of the background noise, and it is like really strong in this episode again. But I noticed they took a lot of it away when it was her POV during that performance, to sort of show how sort of high she was, that she wasn't really like taking anything in, and that was kind of effective. It kind of worked. I do think they were overplaying the noise thing here or there though in the episode. I mean, it doesn't bug me as much as it did Connor, but I definitely was noticing it in places. So yeah, and then Amma kind of sneaks away during the commotion, and then Adora immediately starts wailing and crying. I thought it was a bit quick to be concerned that she's really truly lost. But and Camille like mentions her second phone, and Adora just brushes past it like, oh, what are you talking about? There's no second phone, and that's all it really comes to. It's this idea that she keeps willingly ignoring things, and we get all these things. There's a scene early on actually. Just this reminds me, because she shows Willis the room with the floor that's made out of elephant tusks that she's very proud of, but of course. Of course, most people now would scoff at such an idea, as would I. Really, it's a bit pointless and cruel, just so you can have a fancy floor. But we get a flashback of young Camille, and I actually thought this was going to a really dark place at first. I thought this was showing that she was flirting as a teenager, like as a young teenager, with the photographer who was there to take this photograph for the magazine. Which, by the way, I saw on Reddit afterwards. I had a quick glance. The photograph of the magazine on the wall didn't have Camille in it. It was just her little sister with her mum, and that just added on to Adora's whole thing. But yeah, so the idea of this floor being sacred, and there's a she drops the bottle, the bottle full of vodka, or it's empty at this point I think, and she has to kind of lean in and grab it and not step on the floor. Yeah, so I mean everything about this. I mean the idea that she's happy she's got a floor that's built off of misery. I mean hell, I'd kind of describe the South as kind of in that lines as a whole, but she like yeah. So they go looking for Amma, and they do find her relatively quickly. They find her in the shed. Camille does it specifically, and they bring her back, and she's in bed. And it's after this where Adora like asks Camille to go out for a drink on the porch, and they're sitting out there, and it almost feels like for the first time Adora might be honest and genuine, and she is honest and genuine. Unfortunately, the honesty that comes out of her mouth is really hurtful. She's like, you asked about your father, that spite, that coldness, that distance, that's where you get that from. You were born with that because you came from him, and that's why I never loved you. And I hope that's a comfort to you. I never loved you. I hope that's a comfort to you. So I think "you're ruined" might be worse actually, if I'm really thinking about it. At least for I don't know. It's debatable. You go either way, but this is equally in the same. It's in the same ballpark. How awful this statement is, and I think the acting here. I mean, I think obviously, Patricia Clarkson's doing a fantastic job as Adora. The way like earlier on in the episode when she comes out for the first time into the party, into the barbecue, and like Jackie's trying, which by the way Jackie totally knows some stuff. Like she is keeping some things close to the chest. She the way she was glancing around and keeping an eye on things, and there was definitely some clear implications that the chief and Adora have a bit of a thing. There was a line from Jackie about, oh, those girls know, like the boys with the badges, and then later on the chief was, he was kind of glancing at her, and he looked very concerned when she was talking to Willis, as if he was jealous, and his wife noticed this as well. So I think that's what I liked about this episode, is that once the barbecue got going, I really felt like there was lots of things moving, and I kind of like I understood how they all connected, and it felt like almost a bottle episode in a way, with lots of moving parts, but cool. I'm going to stop and take a drink for it. This is the problem with doing this on my own, is I can't stop and take a drink naturally whilst Connor or whoever's talking, so bear with me. So yeah, I liked all that stuff at the part. Actually, this is one of the best episodes, just purely in terms of how all the characters build, the mood of the town. So much has been well established at this point that I feel like it was all kind of clicking once the barbecue got going. And in this scene, and I think I was talking about Patricia Clarkson's acting. I think Amy Adams, who's been great throughout, has been great specifically throughout this episode. The look in her face when Adora says it, and I don't think it's a surprise, because I think she's felt unloved her entire life. I don't think it's a surprise that Adora feels this way, but I think there's still a shock in actually hearing her say it. Like it's like this, you know, confirmation. This confirmation that she never expected to get. So I think it's a real mix of emotions. I think there's the pain. I think there's almost relief probably mixed in there somewhere. And she goes off to Willis, and we end the episode with a very explicit sex scene. And I think Camille, Adora also said to Camille, you know, he's going to find out when you get close. And Camille responds to that by saying, "Oh, I don't get close. That doesn't happen." But after this, she needs to not be alone. She needs connection. I mean, I think we could analyse it 100 different ways as to exactly the feelings that drive her to go and seek comfort. But she has been bonding with him, and that she has been connecting with him, and there's been chemistry. It makes sense she would seek him out. He's arguably the only one in town, maybe other than Jackie, but she's not going to go Jackie for that, who doesn't come with baggage. Because I feel like that was the other thing going through it around the barbecue with her fake friends coming up to her, Jackie and Co talking to her, the guys talking to her, the one specifically, the football player who'd had sex with her in the woods. All of these characters, all of them were like baggage. All of them were like, this is the past I wanted to get away from, you know. So, and again, the emotion in the phone call, her thinking it's her fault, her thinking that this place makes her feel like she's not right, everything else, all that was great. And then the reaction from Adora to you know, when Adora said what she said, I think was really, really strong and really, really hit home. And then the scene itself, obviously the sex scene itself, again, it's very particular. She kind of strips him down, and you know, he's getting ready, as it were, and they end up on the bed. But she turns out the lights. She insists that they do it her way, and she makes sure he doesn't take off X amount of clothes. Her legs are exposed. We you know, that's one of the things the camera focuses on actually during the scene, is whilst, you know, the thrusting is going on and the sex is happening, there is some close-ups of her thigh where the words are, and it's kind of, you know, so that was really effective in what it was doing. So yeah, it's very, very raw, very emotional, and I appreciate the ending just for the fact that it wasn't like a bullshit cliffhanger. There's nothing about this ending that's bullshit. This was an emotional culmination of the episode for Camille and nothing more. There was no like stupid cliffhanger that might not mean anything next week, and that's kind of cool. That's good. I feel like that respects the audience a little bit more and doesn't feel as cheap. And yeah, all the stuff at the barbecue I thought was really good. The way everything was interwoven and connecting to Camille or Adora or Amma was really good. The idea that, you know, for a second on the porch, I almost thought that Camille might give some advice about Amma, like, hey, as someone who was messed up as a teenager, as someone who went through a lot of stuff, maybe I understand why she's acting out like this. And again, Adora just kind of like flippantly goes, she's just been a teenager. She'll be fine. Leading to disaster is what I'd say. This is all leading to disaster, and I think it's going to blow up by the time we move further on. So yeah, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes in terms of like who the killer is and all that stuff. There wasn't much to sort of go on in this one. Obviously, we had some red herrings last episode, but we'll see. So no, I thought this was a solid episode. I'm kind of glad I watched this one. I thought this was easily one of the best, maybe even the best episode of the show so far. It felt very focused. It felt very tight. Everything felt like it was popping based on the build-up that we've had in the previous episodes. So it was just the first couple of minutes I had to get over the fact that the cliffhanger last week was just bullshit. But once I get past that dressing room scene, the scene in the porch, and then generally the whole barbecue, to be honest, like the tension as it was building and people were looking around was really good. So that is episode 5 of Sharp Objects. I will be back next week with episode 6, flying solo, so look forward to that. And let me know how if you thought this was okay. If you're used to watching this channel as with 2 of us or 3 of us talking about something, if some solo things here or there would be would be a cool idea and would be appealing, let us know. Especially if it means a few more things get covered that otherwise wouldn't. But hey, so that is that. If you want to support the channel and support everything we do here and keep more reviews and stuff coming, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and you can support us over there for as little as $1 a month and get some bonuses for your troubles. Of course, if you can't do that, don't feel too bad. You can like, subscribe, comment. All of that helps. Turn off ad block. Watch the ads on YouTube. Let them play. All of that helps. It really does. So thank you very much for watching. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You can get me personally on Twitter at wibble89. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?